Today I'm testing 4 popular vegan chocolate chip cookie recipes to find my favorite and maybe yours. Hi, I'm Janelle and this is How to Bake Vegan. Before I share with you my personal favorite vegan chocolate chip cookie recipe, I figured I'll try a few favorites here on YouTube: Ovenly's, Cupcake Jemma, Make It Dairy Free, and Mary's Test Kitchen. Starting off with Ovenly's recipe, here's a quick look at the ingredients. They recommend dark brown sugar, dark chocolate chips, and sea salt for topping. In a large bowl, combine the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Set that aside, grab another bowl, and stir together the sugars, oil, and water. Add the flour and chocolate chips and stir until combined. The dough did end up being soft. Initially, I had used bleached flour because the recipe didn't specify and I wanted to see what the results would be like. Bleached flour usually has less protein, meaning the dough will be a lot softer and the cookies will spread more. I did eventually stir in an extra 3 tablespoons of unbleached flour. Cookie dough also thickens more when placed in the fridge, so I did just that as recommended by the recipe and left it overnight. Next, I prepared Cupcake Jemma's recipe, which also requires an overnight rest in the fridge. Here's a quick look at the ingredients, which includes vanilla. I have both pure vanilla extract and artificial or imitation vanilla, but when baking cookies, you really can't tell the difference, so just use whatever you have on hand. This time, I'll be using the vanilla extract. Also, ignore the chocolate chips, as I end up using some chopped chocolate, as Jemma did in her video. I'm using semi-sweet chocolate, and I chopped it right on the wrapper so to limit the mess on my cutting board. You can chop the chunks as big or as small as you desire, but here's the size I went for. And in case you're wondering, here's the brand I used. But whichever brand of chocolate you choose, check to make sure it's vegan friendly. This recipe will require a kitchen scale, which tends to be more accurate when baking. Grab a bowl and sift together the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. In a separate bowl, combine the light brown sugar and caster sugar or white cane sugar. Then mix in the oil, water, and vanilla. Next, stir in the flour until combined. This time I used unbleached all-purpose flour, as most of the flour brands in the UK are unbleached. Add the cookie dough to a container and place in the refrigerator overnight. The next day, I baked the first batch of cookies, so preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I started with Ovenly's. Line a baking sheet with parchment paper. Get a cookie scoop. Here's the one I used. I'll link to it in the description below or share a similar one. Scoop the cookie dough and place at least 3 inches apart on the baking sheet. Top with flaky sea salt, then place them in the oven. I baked these for about 13 minutes. Grab another tray and scoop the remaining cookie dough. This batch was placed in the freezer for about 10 minutes as recommended. Here's the first batch from the oven. Grab the batch from the freezer, top with flaky sea salt, and bake for about 10 to 13 minutes, or until brown on the edges. The frozen batch did end up spreading a little bit less. Next, it's Cupcake Jemma's. Again, you'll need a kitchen scale, as Jemma recommends measuring the cookie dough for more accuracy. To keep your scale clean, use a plate and press the tare or 0 button to remove the weight of the plate. Then measure about 40 grams of cookie dough and roll into a ball. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this method as it gets a bit messy, and as you roll the cookie dough, your hands warm it up, causing the oil to seep out, which you'll see in a moment. She did use gloves in her video, but I didn't have any at the moment. Rolling the dough also takes a lot longer than using a cookie scoop. As the oil coats the surface of the cookie dough, this also made the chocolate pieces harder to stick. Once I was done, I placed them in the freezer for 10 minutes as recommended. Then divided between 2 cookie sheets and bake at 340 degrees Fahrenheit for 13 minutes. Next up, make it dairy free. This recipe uses vegan butter softened at room temperature. We'll be doing the creaming method, which will require a mixer. Add the vegan butter and sugars to a bowl and cream together until the mixture is lighter in color. Mix in the vanilla and applesauce. Add the flour, baking soda, salt, and mix to combine. Then fold in the chocolate chips. This recipe doesn't require a resting time. Grab your cookie sheet lined with parchment paper and start scooping out the dough. Top with any extra chocolate chips, then bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes. But mine took about 15 minutes to bake. Since the flaky salt is optional, I decided to put some on half the batch. And finally, Mary's Test Kitchen, which was adapted from VeggedOut.com. I decided to make the recipe according to Mary's suggestions. One key ingredient is aquafaba, which is the liquid from a can of chickpeas. Start by creaming together the vegan butter and sugar. Add in the baking powder, baking soda, salt, vanilla, and chickpea brine. Add the flour and stir until combined. This dough ended up being way softer than expected, and even after rewatching Mary's video, I couldn't figure out exactly what the problem was. Even after adding the extra 3 tablespoons of flour, it was still too soft and the cookies ended up spreading really thin. But after a couple days, I realized that I had overlooked a very important note on Vegged Out's website. At the end of the recipe, she mentioned how to measure the flour. She recommended not to use the spoon and level method, which is usually a more accurate way of measuring flour when using measuring cups, but in this case she recommended the scoop and level method, where you basically plunge the measuring cup into the bag of flour, scoop some out, and level it off. So a couple days later, I remade the recipe and the results were much better. You'll see a different footage for that taste test close to the end of the video. Now it's time for the taste test. First, I'm going to start out with oven leaves. Here's what it looks like. It's a little bit on the thinner side. It's a little bit kind of crispy. It browned up really nicely, and I guess it's because of the use of dark brown sugar. And I really love the color on the bottom of the cookie. Now let's give it a taste. It's not bad. It's not too sweet, which I like. It does have kind of an oily flavor though. Like I can taste the oiliness in the cookie. It doesn't have a very strong sweetness. If you don't like too much sugar in your cookie, this might be a good one for you, but you do like a little bit more sweetness in your chocolate cookie, it's fine. It has a nice mix of chewy and crispy on the bottom, but it's not bad. Have a sip of water. Okay, that was more like a gulp. Next is Cupcake Jemmas. Let's see if you can see it. Okay. Okay. Oops. Oh dear. Making a mess. I can definitely taste the vanilla in this. It sort of boosts the flavor a little bit, boosts the sweetness. I think the vanilla definitely helps bring out the sweetness and gives it a more bakery style flavor. So I actually like that. It's pretty good. Almost gives it this buttery flavor as well, because this one was also made with oil. The vanilla gives it a bit more richness. Pretty good. I like it. Also has a nice even browning, which makes it a bit more flavorful and brings out more sweetness in the cookie. Good. I would make this again. It's pretty good. Next up is Make It Dairy Freeze cookie. Here's what it looks like. Since this cookie recipe didn't recommend leaving it overnight in the fridge, you can tell that it's a lot paler. Like the sugars didn't really have time to break down and blend with the flour very well, but I'm very interested in seeing what it tastes like. Since the flaky salt was optional, I'm gonna try a bit of both. One with the salt, one without the salt. First, the one with the salt. Without the salt. I think I prefer the one without the salt because this recipe was made with vegan butter, and most vegan butter brands have a lot of salt added. There's the addition of salt to the recipe on top of the salt in the vegan butter and salt again on top, which if you're really into the really strong salty sweet flavors, then this might be good for you. But if you're looking more for sweetness, then I think the version without salt would be better. But also it has more of a chewy texture. I do like how thick and chewy it is, but it's more of a cakey chewiness. I'm not getting much of the vanilla flavor though. I think it could have done with a bit of resting time in the fridge, but it's a good option if you really want to make a quick cookie. As for the thickness and the texture, they're pretty good for a soft to bake type of cookie. It's an okay cookie. This was the result of the failed attempt at Mary's recipe, which was totally my bad, but just leaving it here for reference. The cookie was crumbly, overly sweet, and salty at the same time, which was kind of weird. But no worries, the actual taste test is coming up soon.
Being honest, I'm not really feeling anything that stands out. Soft, chewy. It doesn't feel that sweet. Mild in taste. Flavor feels a little bit stronger, maybe a little sweeter. It feels like a stronger chocolate flavor. Maybe more chips in it, I don't know. Texture's a little bit, maybe more chewier than the other ones. Not really too sweet. Chewy. I'm tasting something, but I don't know what it is, but I'm tasting something different from all the other ones. Yeah, that one was a lot different than all the other ones.
Oh, really? Do you have any particular favorites?
I can tell you what my least favorite was, which was the last one. I did not like the flavor of that one at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
No.
Why?
Just whatever that different taste was, it just didn't taste that good to me.
Oh, okay.
I think the one that I said had the chocolate flavor, or a lot of chocolate flavor. I really like that one.
Okay. The second trial of Mary's Test Kitchen's chocolate chip cookie did give much better results, so we're doing a second taste test or a follow-up taste test.
Really nice and soft.
Yeah, this one is definitely a lot better than the previous batch. Using a bit more flour does make it taste a lot less salty. You picked a favorite previously of the other ones. Do you prefer this one, or do you still think the Cupcake Jemma one is better, or do you think this is now your favorite?
I think this is definitely closer to Cupcake Jemma. It's like closer to the top.
Yeah, that's true. Especially for a cookie that hasn't rested overnight. It's actually pretty good. They know what they're talking about. But I still choose Gemma's cookie as my favorite. The sugars and the vanilla flavor does meld together a lot better, in my opinion. This is definitely a close second. Good one. Okay guys, that ends my cookie taste test. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you give each and every one of these recipes a try. I'll link all of them below. So go right ahead, test them out for yourself, and let me know what you think. If you've given any of these a try and you've discovered your favorite, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.